So I'm going to be creating my own version of the Colourpop and Twilight collaboration palette. Now, I actually really like the color story. I like that it's not reds and grays, because honestly we've seen that so many times at this point in terms of vampires as well as just horror from Glamlight. Glamlight has launched so many gray, red, black eyeshadow palettes at this point, and I like that this is going off of the vibes of the movies rather than just vampire. To me, the color story definitely gives Hoa Hoa vibes from that song that plays. If you know, you know. Cold, desaturated, like a very crispy kind of fall, gloomy day. And also Twilight did a collaboration with Hot Topic, I don't remember at some point, but it's not available anymore. And they did do the red and black and brown, so they probably wanted to do something else for this collaboration, but who knows, maybe there will be a part 2. The way the collection flew off the shelves, I probably think there's going to be a part 2. I was able to grab the palette and the 2 highlighters as well as the lip oils during launch. Somehow I was able to do it, so stay tuned for a video with the actual palette, but for this version I do just want to build upon it essentially. So I do want to deepen up a little bit more some of the mattes, maybe switch up the tones just a tiny bit, and then of course add lots of beautiful special shimmer shadows, which is something Colourpop can't quite do or hasn't done yet. Maybe we'll see it happening in 2024. I think there's one duochrome in the palette based on the swatches, so I'm going to be going off of the palette, which I'm putting right here for reference, and then I'm also going to be using Beaute's swatches of the palette, which I'll also put up here because I think they're really nice and I can really get a feel for the tones in this picture. So I'm first going to be going through the mattes and then I will pick out the shimmers. So first up is this gray shade. Now in the palette it does look pretty light, but in Beaute swatches a smidgen darker. So I pulled this shade right here, and this is from one of the Simply Posh palettes. This one has a little bit of a purpley tone to it. And then next up I pulled Perseus, and this is from Terra. This is like a true gray. Bernovich 87. For some reason this one doesn't really want to swatch the best. Elysium from Devinah, and 147 also from Bernovich. So obviously these 2 shades are pretty different, but I kind of thought it might be nice in here because they give the desaturated vibe without being straight up gray. And also I think this would go really nicely with some of the other tones in here. So I think I'm going to keep the Devinah shade and then the Terra shade, and then I'm going to make a decision as we go on which one I'm going to actually keep for that shade. The next shade is interesting because it looks very light beige in the pictures of the palette, but in the swatches and in Beaute's swatches it looks a little bit more olive tone and a little bit darker. I don't know if that's the lighting or her skin tone. So I did end up actually pulling another neutral shade here, which I think might be closer in. So I originally pulled Clionadh from Devinah, which I think is way too yellow, and then I pulled this shade, and this is from the Cozy Catman palette from Simply Posh, and that one is way too orange. And then the new shade is Freya, and I do feel like it's a little bit too, it's not neutral enough, but I think it might be nice in here in the grand scheme of things. So I think I'm gonna pull that one actually. I'm gonna leave the other Devinah shade as well, just in case. Next up is a grassy green, but it looks pretty light in the pan, and it definitely looks like it has a little bit of a grayish look to it, even though in the swatches it just looks like a true grassy green. I think I want something a little bit more mid-tone, particularly looking at the palette, so I pulled this shade, but this is from the Cozy Catman palette from Simply Posh, and then I also picked out Jaded from Devinah because I thought maybe it would be nice to add a teal in here. Now this one's not really swatching the best, but because there is a darker grassy green later on in the palette. And then the next shade is just one of the mattes from the Best Mattes palette from Bella Beauty Bar, and then so is this next shade right here too. I actually really like this one. I think I'm going to keep that one for this shade. And then lastly is Sade from Devinah. These two are very similar. This one is a little bit more muddy, and I actually really like that it's muddy. But looking at the swatch, I feel like it should be one of these one of these shades. So those are the two shades I'm going to leave out for that one. So I forgot to press record, but essentially I'm going with this green shade at the top. This one is from the second collaboration palette between Betty Bean and Shroud Cosmetics. And I brought back in Dede from Devinah as an option because it's so murky. First going to be swatching Manic for the warm toned brown. And then a shade from the Best Mattes palette. And then a shade from the Cozy Cabin palette. I don't really have many dark brown shades like this, and I wanted something for sure to add a little bit of, so I'm going to put the Best Mattes shade aside. And then the last matte has me very confused because in the picture it looks almost like a grayish periwinkle, and then in Beaute swatches it looks more like a washed out denim blue, which I think makes a lot of sense to me. So I think I'm going to remove some of the shades from here that I was going to swatch because I do not think that they actually fit anymore. And I did pull these before I saw her swatches, so that's part of the reason. So I actually think I'm going to go back and pull a couple of more mattes. So I'm not really sure if I should go by the picture or by the swatch. So, okay, I'm going to remove this one as well, but I do think some of these might be good. So I'm going to first swatch Patrina from Devinah, which this one is very, very gray, for sure. I think it looks even more gray swatched out. And then this is from the, oh my gosh, I can't remember that palette, Shroud Cosmetics. It's got like, oh, it's like a 9-pan palette. And then Best Mattes. I think I like the Best Mattes the most, even though it's not really denim-y blue. I think this one matches nicely in what it looks like in the pan. In their swatches, it definitely looks blue, so that's very interesting. That's very, very interesting. All the shades I pulled are a little bit like on the periwinkle side, but I feel like the blue makes sense in here. So I do think these could work in here, so let me swatch this one from the Cozy Cabin from Simply Posh. But I do also want to swatch some blues that I just, bluish shades that I just swatched. And then this one is from Terra Moons. Yeah, I think these are too gray. I do not think that these really belong here. Based on the swatches, I'm going to assume that it really does truly look... Actually, this one might not be too bad, the way it's swatching, but that one is definitely not right. And then the others are definitely way too plummy, so I'm going to pull those out. But I think this one might stay as a contender. And then I did take this one out. I feel like it looks too green and it's too vibrant. Yeah, okay, that's not right either. So I did really want to deepen that one up, so I might pull this shade as well because it is nice and desaturated for that shade as an option. I'm going to keep the truish gray shade. I want to keep this lighter shade. And then I think I'm going to go with the Best Mattes green for that shade, even though it's not really close. It's really such an olivey tone green, but it is what it is. And then I only have one for the dark green on the bottom and then the dark brown. And then I'm going to keep these two options for that other shade that I just picked out. Once I have the shimmers, I'll make a decision. So I think we're all set with the matte, so it's time to move on to the shimmers. And you know I picked out a lot. And for this one, we're not going to go row by row. And I also don't think I'm going to swatch any of these because I did pick these out last night. And then this morning, I just rolled out of bed and was just like, let's do this. I do know for 100% that the very first shade, I'm going to be picking Intangible from the Angles of Illumination palette from Bella Beaute Bar. This shade has like so many different sparkles in it. It is a little bit more textured and it's for sure more special than the shade in the Colourpop palette. This is Skin of a Killer plus Alien Skin plus Unicorn Farts. Like this is just everything put together into this super amazing kind of shimmery shade. So I'm just gonna swatch that out on the back of my hand. I mean, look at all the sparkles. So dimensional, so much fun. I knew I immediately wanted that shade for that one. And then the last shade, it looks like it's a black with lots of silver sparkles throughout it. You know how I feel about those kinds of shades. I'm tired. I am so sick and tired of those kinds of shades being shoved into palettes. So I don't think it's a shimmer, but we're gonna make it a shimmer. I could have totally just pulled a black for this, and I think it would have been nice. However, I thought it would be kind of nice to maybe spice it up a little bit. Also, these are hollows. So these are from Bella Beaute Bar, and this one is literally actually like a black with hollow in it. So that's what that one looks like. I think this one's perfect. Like, I mean, done, honestly. And then there's this purple one, which is also really cool. I think I'm going to go with this one. I feel like that one just really is a good substitution there, but like a way more interesting substitution. So there are 8 shimmers here. So I already have one picked out and then one a substitution for the matte. So we're going to have actually 9 shimmers technically in my version of the palette. So I pulled a couple of shades from Fantasy Cosmetica that are hollows, that are a little bit translucent. And I thought that would be nice for that shade that is called Ice Cold. And I'm definitely going to be pulling, I think, this one. It's a little bit grungy. And this is the shade Song. So let's just put it next to that. See, it's pretty different. It has a little bit more of an olive tone in it. So then there's 2 more shimmers left from the top row. And one of them looks like a pretty neutral, beigey toned shade. And then a super cool toned shimmery shade. I unfortunately don't have a lot of neutral shades like that. I do have a bunch from Terra, Devinah, and Lethal Cosmetics. However, none of them have that kind of tone in them. And I just checked again. So I think I'm going to go with the shade Midnight Starlight because I think it's a very interesting kind of bluish purpley silver with pink flecks throughout it. Look at that. I mean, that is so pretty. I think that's as close as I'm going to get. The next shade is Ice Cold, and that one is just like another white metallic, which honestly, I don't feel like it needed to be in here. It is like a truly white shimmer shadow. I'm going to skip over that one for now. And then the next shade is the Collins. It is a purple duochrome. So I have a couple of options for that one, and definitely this shade. This shade is a Luster, and this is from the Angles of Illumination palette. And then I also have for that one this shade and this shade. Okay, so I think you know what I'm going to do? I think I'm going to put this shade, which is Fireflies from Shellwe, as that instead of that white shade for now, because I don't feel like we need 2 whiter shades, even though the other one is a topper light shade. And I don't have like a white shimmer shadow to my knowledge. So then we have El Safina from Terra, and then this purple. I kind of feel like it might be nice to put in a deeper purple, so I'm going to put that one in there and then pull that one back aside. And then the next shade is a green, and it looks like very much a true foresty kind of green. So I think out of all of these that I pulled out, I feel like this from Touch of Glam Spilled Tea is the most kind of vibrant shade that I think goes really well in here. And then there is one more kind of neutral shade now that's over here. And so I have a couple of options for that one. I think these 3 might be interesting. Actually, no, just these 2. So this is Spiral Galaxy from Terra, and then Verdigris from Seeking Shifts, and ShineBySD. So let me just quickly swatch these. What I feel like might fit nicely in here. Okay, so I had pulled this shade for that center 17 matte, and I just don't think it fits in there whatsoever. So I'm actually going to switch it out. And I'm going to switch it out with Jaded. I just feel like Jaded fits more in there than that one, because like this one is just, it's desaturated, but like not really. It's more grungy than desaturated. So I think with this color story, I think I'm gonna put Verdigris, because I like that it's a little bit more translucent. And then there is one more shimmer in the bottom, and that one is looking a little bit purpley, but in the swatch it actually looks a little bit taupey. It's very interesting. And then on their website it actually looks brown, like a dark shimmery brown. That is not at all what it looks like in the palette. It's like a very dark purple. So actually I'm going to switch this one that I pulled for a previous shade, and I'm going to bring it down here. I think that now in the top row I have too many. So I think I'm going to move this shade as well, Fireflies, to the bottom row. So let me show you where I'm at, and then we're going to use that to help last shade that is missing. So there's one more shade I need up there. It's called Ice Cold. I think it might be nice to have a kind of like a blue. So I have a couple of shades pulled here. This top one is from Terra. It is Galileo. It has lots of pinky sparkles in it. And then the next shade is from I think it's the Cozy Cabin palette from Simply Posh. Really stunning. Has a little bit of a brownish base. I think this one will look really nice in here. And then the last one is like a true icy shade, Winter Star from Terra. Super icy. I think we should do that one. Let's just see all of them in here actually. So that's with that one. That's with that one. I actually really like this shade. I kind of really like that shade in there too. So, and then I don't think I like this one. So I'm a little bit in between these two. I do feel like they're different enough, at least to me, where I kind of almost wonder if I switch this out. What do we think about that? I kind of like the purple in there, but looking at the swatches, I do feel like there's not really a lot of blue. And also I'm going to pick this one. Just based on the swatches, I think that shade is the closest. So here's where we're at now. I can't decide. Honestly, it could be really just depending on the day. The Collins is a purple, so I think I'm going to leave it like this. So this is the final. I'm going to put in an empty palette. Alright, so it's been a few hours and I saw some more swatches and I actually switched out these two mattes. So I'm using the shade from the Cozy Cabin palette from Simply Posh, and then this matte, this is from Glam Shop. It's called Attrament. So this is the final color story I'm going with. I think I like the changes in these two shades. I think it makes it a little bit closer in. So let me know in the comments below what you think of my version of the Twilight and Colourpop palette. And stay tuned for the video actually using the palette and creating a couple of looks. My order actually already shipped, so I'm so excited. Hopefully it comes very soon. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you next time.